Hey everyone, this is Pallavi and today I'm going to show the 8th game of the book Logical Chess Move by Move by Irving Chernev. This is another beautiful game in Colle System and we'll see how to take advantage when your opponent breaks a golden rule. Let's start. So this game was played between Przepiorka and Prokeš in Budapest in 1929. White started with d4, occupying the center and also controlling the c5 and e5 square, making way for the bishop to come out, and the pawn is supported by the queen. Black played knight f6. The knight is developed towards the center and also stopping white from playing e4. Now white played knight to f3, also developing towards the center to control more squares. Now black played e6, making way for the f8 bishop to come out and controls the d5 and f5 square. White played e3. This move blocks the c1 bishop, but white is preparing the typical Colle formation of bishop at d3 and knight at d2, and to control the e4 square. So after e3, black played d5. With this move, black is controlling the center and also making way for the queen, space for the queen, and also plants a pawn in the center. But this move in combination with e6, it blocks the c8 bishop's way. So after d5, white played bishop to d3, develops on an open diagonal and overlooks on these two diagonals, also making way for the king to castle and also putting pressure on the e4 square, which is really important in Colle system. Black played c5. Now this move is almost indispensable in queen's pawn openings. It is important not to play knight c6 first, as black's c pawn must not be obstructed. The move strikes at the center and creates a tension in that area. So if you play knight c6, this would block the c7 pawn. So that's why it's important that you keep open of this file. So do not develop the knight from c6 before you push the pawn to c5. So after c5, white played c3, strengthening the center. Also, if black tries to play c4, then white will move his bishop to c2 and still control this diagonal. Now after c3, black played knight b d7. If d cross c5, then black will capture the c5 pawn with his bishop and develop as well. So white will be giving up his central pawn, so which is not good right now. So after c3, black played knight b d7, and at d7 the knights are in touch with each other. So that if the f6 knight is exchanged, the other knight can get to f6, an ideal square for attack or defense. So at d7, the knight keeps clear of the c file. The more open the file is, the more useful will it be for the queen and rook that occupies it from this file. So after knight b d7, actually in queen's pawn opening, black's queen's knight often does a better job at d7 than at c6. After knight b d7, white played knight b d2, intensifying the pressure on e4. Right now it looks awkward in white's development of pieces, which they seem to be in each other's way. But as will be seen, they can spring back into action smoothly and easily once they get to open up from e4. After knight b d2, black played bishop to d6, develops on an open diagonal and makes way for his king to castle. Now white played castle. White secures his king first before opening up the position, as it is dangerous to open up lines and leave the king in the center where it is exposed to a possible counter attack. The castling also activates the rook, which can be used for attack later on. So after short castle, black also played short castle, secured his king and also activates his rook. White played rook to e1, still more pressure on e4. The rook is now ready to get a grip on the e file as soon as it gets opened. by playing e4 and pawns are exchanged. Black played queen c7. From here, the queen exerts pressure on the c file and bears down on the center, especially on e5. Now, white played a good move, e4, the key move in the Colle system. With this move, white intends to blast the position wide open and release all the stored up energy of his pieces in a forceful attack. You can now pause for a moment and look for an immediate threat after this move. I hope you got the answer. Here, white is threatening to play e5, which will be a double attack, attacking the bishop and the knight. So after e4, black captured, c cross d4 removes the immediate threat and controls the file temporarily, the c file. White played c cross d4. Better than taking with the knight, as it will allow black to capture the h2 pawn and also place pieces on c5 and e5. If knight cross d4, then bishop cross h2 check. Meanwhile, after c cross d4, white again threatens to play e5 and double attack. So after c cross d4, black played d cross e4. Black parries the threat, also creates an isolated pawn in white's position, that is the d4 pawn. Such pawns are vulnerable to attack as it cannot be protected by another pawn, the nearest one being couple of files away. After d cross e4, white played knight cross e4. White did not capture with the bishop because white did not want his light squared bishop to get exchanged as it controls the vital diagonal. Black would have captured knight cross e4. So that's why white played knight cross e4 and then black played b6, intending to mobilize his c8 bishop from b7. White played bishop to g5. Developing the bishop also vacates the c1 square for the a1 rook, which can swing and drive the queen off and take control of this beautiful file. So after bishop to g5, black played knight cross e4. Apparently, black was afraid to play bishop to b7 because of knight cross f6 check, knight cross f6, bishop cross f6, g cross f6, that would break up his kingside pawn position. That's why black played knight cross e4 and now white played rook cross e4. That's a good move. Superior to bishop cross e4, black might play bishop b7 to exchange the bishop, and then bishop d3 to avoid the exchange, and then bishop cross f3, queen cross f3, and bishop cross h2 check, consoling himself with a pawn for his troubles. So that is why white did not play bishop cross e4, white played rook cross e4. Now black played bishop b7, develops with a threat on the rook. Now white played rook to c1. A fine in-between move. The rook is now developed on an open file with a threat on the black queen. So after this, black played queen b8. If black had played bishop c6, that would get itself pinned by the rook. So after queen b8, white played rook to h4. White's threat is now bishop cross h7 check. Forces black to move one of his kingside pawns. Every pawn move loosens the defending structure. Every undefended square created by advancing a pawn creates weaknesses in position. So here, black played g6. f5 was better option as to block the menacing bishop's diagonal. Had black played knight to f6, then bishop cross f6, g cross f6, and bishop cross h7 check. Had black played h6 instead of g6, then bishop cross h6, g cross h6, queen d2, followed by queen cross h6, and then rook g4 checkmate. That's a disastrous position for black. So after g6, black has created weaknesses in these two squares, in these dark squares. Now white played bishop to b5. Attacks the knight which has no square to move. As this bishop is controlling this square, this pawn is controlling these two squares. So here, black played queen to e8, supporting the knight. But it also creates pain on this knight by the bishop. Had black played bishop c8 instead of queen e8. Then bishop c6 wins the exchange. Had black played bishop to f3, bishop cross f3, then queen cross f3, queen e8, supporting the knight, and then queen b7. Again putting pressure on the knight, and white wins this piece. So after bishop b5, black played queen e8, supporting the knight but also creating a pin on that knight. Now white played knight to e5, putting more attacks on the pinned knight. Now black played bishop to c8. Had black played bishop cross e5, then d cross e5, uncovering the queen's attack. And then let's say bishop c8, then rook c7, and the knight is lost. So bishop, rook, and queen all attacking the knight. So after knight e5, black played bishop to c8, and then white played a good move. Rook cross c8, removing the guard. If you cannot increase pressure on a piece, see if you can dispose of its defenders. Now black played queen cross c8. Had black played rook cross c8, then bishop cross d7 traps the queen. So queen cross c8, and now white played bishop cross d7. White got two pieces for the rook and the attack. Now black played queen c7. Had black played queen b7, then bishop c6, and it's a skewer. Had black played queen to b8, and then also bishop c6, and it's a trap of the rook. So queen c7, and then white played knight to g4. First step toward exploiting the dark squares, and threatens to play knight f6 check, king g7 or king h8, then rook cross h7 checkmate. So after knight g4, black played h5, making room for the black king. Had black played f5, then bishop cross e6 check, king h8, knight f6, threatening to play rook cross h7, and it's a double attack, losing the queen. And if black now plays rook cross f6, then bishop cross f6 check, only move queen g7 and bishop cross g7, winning the queen. So after knight g4, black played h5, and then white played knight f6 check, the first strike. Now black played king g7. Had black played king h8, then rook cross h5 check, j cross h5, queen cross h5 check, king g7 and queen h7 checkmate. Then king g7. After king g7, now white played knight cross h5, sacrificing the knight to sweep away the pawns, shielding the enemy king. Now black played g cross h5. Had black played king g8, then knight f6 check, king g7 and rook h7 checkmate. Same goes for king h7, then knight f6 check, king g7 and rook h7 checkmate. So after knight cross h5, g cross h5, and then queen cross h5. Threatening to play queen h7 checkmate or queen h6 check, king g8 and queen h7 checkmate. So here black played rook to h8. Only move to stop the checkmate temporarily. Bishop h6 check. The final blow. Now black captured rook cross h6. Had black played king h7, then queen cross f7 checkmate. Had black played king f6, then queen g5 checkmate. So after bishop h6 check, rook cross h6, and then queen cross h6 check, only move king g8, and hope you saw the checkmate, queen h8. So from this game, we learned these principles. Occupy the center with pawns, develop your pieces towards the center, castle as early as possible, whenever possible, develop with a threat. Take control of open files with rooks. Do not weaken the pawn structure in front of your castle king. Every pawn move loosens the defending structure. Every undefended square created by advancing a pawn creates weaknesses. Occupy weak squares or holes in enemy's position with your pieces. Put pressure on enemy's pinned piece. If you cannot increase the pressure on a piece, see if you can dispose of its defenders. So I hope you learned something from this game as well. This was also a beautiful game. And thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.